The first thing I registered was the smell, not my apartment. My apartment smells like stale pizza boxes and the desperation of a man who hasn't done laundry in 2 weeks. This smell was different. Clean. Expensive. Like hotel sheets that cost more per night than my weekly paycheck. The second thing I registered was the weight on my chest. I opened one eye. A strand of dark hair was draped across my collarbone. Female hair. Long, silky. Definitely not mine. My brain, still pickled from last night's company Christmas party, took a full 5 seconds to process this information. Then it hit me like a freight train. I turned my head slowly, praying to every god I didn't believe in that this was some kind of elaborate hallucination. It wasn't. Emma Chun was lying next to me, her face half buried in the pillow, her breathing slow and even. She was wearing my shirt, the blue one with the coffee stain on the sleeve that I kept meaning to throw away. Her own clothes were scattered across the floor like evidence at a crime scene. Emma Chun, from accounting. The girl who sat 3 cubicles away from me. The one who never spoke in meetings, who ate lunch alone at her desk every day, who wore the same beige cardigan so often I started to wonder if she owned multiple copies or just never washed it. Emma fucking Chun. I closed my eyes again. Maybe if I stayed very still, reality would reset itself. Maybe this was all a dream. A very bad, very complicated dream caused by too much cheap whiskey and not enough self-respect that you're awake. Her voice was soft but completely clear. No morning grogginess. No confusion. Like she'd been waiting for me to open my eyes. I opened my eyes. She was propped up on one elbow, looking down at me with an expression I couldn't read. Her hair was messy, falling across her face in dark waves. Without her glasses, her eyes looked bigger, sharper. They were studying me the way a scientist studies a particularly interesting specimen. I can explain, I said. Can you? She raised an eyebrow. Because I'd love to hear it. How does a man go from nice weather we're having at the office holiday party to? She gestured vaguely at the bed, at us, at the disaster zone of a room. This? I don't remember. The words came out before I could stop them. Honest, but probably not smart. Interesting. She didn't look offended. If anything, she looked amused. So you're telling me you blacked out, somehow convinced me to come back to your place, and now you have no recollection of any of it? I didn't say I convinced you. You didn't have to. She sat up, pulling the sheet with her. My shirt slipped off one shoulder, revealing a bruise. I definitely didn't want to think about how it got there. I remember everything, Lucas. Every single detail. My stomach dropped. Oh God, relax. She swung her legs over the side of the bed and stood up. She was wearing my shirt and nothing else. I tried very hard not to look. You were a gentleman. Surprisingly. You asked 3 times if I was sure before anything happened. I did. You did. It was almost annoying. She walked toward the bathroom, then paused at the door. But also kind of sweet. I didn't expect that from a guy who drinks his whiskey neat and cries during insurance commercials. I don't cry during. You cried during a Geico commercial last week. I saw you through your office window. I had no response to that. Partly because she was right, and partly because I was still trying to process the fact that Emma Chun, quiet, invisible, forgettable Emma Chun, had apparently been watching me through my office window. She disappeared into the bathroom. I heard the shower turn on. I lay there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together the fragments of last night. The party at the Roosevelt Hotel. Free bar. Karaoke that I definitely should not have participated in. A conversation with Emma by the coat check that started with her asking if I knew how to get to Grand Central and ended with, actually, I couldn't remember how it ended. I sat up and immediately regretted it. The room spun. My head felt like someone had replaced my brain with a blender full of rocks. I looked around. My apartment looked like a tornado had passed through it. Empty bottles on the coffee table. A pizza box on the floor. My keys hanging from a potted plant that I didn't remember owning. Wait. I didn't own a potted plant. I squinted at it. A small succulent in a ceramic pot shaped like a cat. Definitely not mine. The bathroom door opened. Steam rolled out. Emma emerged wearing a towel, her wet hair dripping onto her shoulders. She looked different without the glasses and the baggy sweaters. Better. Not that I'd ever let myself notice before that we need to talk. She said, that's never a good opening line. It's the only one that matters. She sat down on the edge of the bed, facing me. Water dripped from her hair onto the sheets. Last night was unexpected, but it happened. And now we need to decide what we're going to do about it. What do you mean, what we're going to do about it? It was one night. We're adults. These things happen. Is that what you want? Her eyes locked onto mine. There was something in them I couldn't quite identify. Challenge. Hope. Amusement. Yes. No. I don't know. I ran my hands through my hair. Look, Emma, I barely know you. We work together. This is complicated enough as it is. Can't we just pretend it didn't happen and go back to normal? Normal. She repeated the word like she was tasting it and found it lacking. What's normal, Lucas? You coming into work every day, doing your mediocre job, going home to your empty apartment, eating your sad microwave dinners, and pretending that's enough? I blinked. Wow. Okay. Tell me how you really feel. I'm just being honest. She didn't flinch. You're 32 years old. You've been at the same company for 4 years. You haven't had a promotion in 2. You eat the same thing for lunch every day. Turkey sandwich from the deli on the corner, no mustard, extra pickles. You go to the gym twice a week, but spend most of the time scrolling through your phone. You have exactly 2 friends, both of whom you see maybe once a month. How do you know all this? I pay attention. She shrugged. It's what I do. I observe. I analyze. I draw conclusions. And what conclusion did you draw about me? She smiled. It was a small smile, barely a curve of her lips, but it transformed her face entirely. That you're capable of more than you think you are. That you're settling for a life that doesn't challenge you because it's easier than taking a risk. That you're afraid of failure, so you've decided not to try. That I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her she was wrong. But the words stuck in my throat because she wasn't wrong. She was absolutely, devastatingly right. So what's your solution? I asked finally. We sleep together once, and suddenly you're my life coach. No. She stood up. The towel shifted dangerously. I looked away. My solution is simpler than that. And more permanent. She walked over to her purse, a plain black bag that I'd seen her carry 100 times, and pulled out a folder. She handed it to me. I opened it. Inside was a marriage license application. Already filled out. Both our names. Her signature already at the bottom. What the hell is this? A solution. She crossed her arms. To multiple problems. Yours and mine. Emma, this is insane. We don't know each other. We spent one night together. You can't just. I can. Her voice was calm. Steady. Like she'd rehearsed this conversation 1,000 times. And I will. Unless you have a better idea. Why would you want to marry me? You don't even like me. Who says I don't like you? You just called my life mediocre. Mediocre doesn't mean worthless. It means untapped potential. She stepped closer. I need a husband, Lucas. Not forever. Just for now. And you need a push. A reason to stop playing small. I'm offering you both. This is crazy. This is logical. She tapped the folder. Think about it. We get married. We keep living our separate lives. I help you with your career. You help me with a family situation. After 6 months, we quietly annul it. No harm. No foul. What kind of family situation requires a fake husband? One I'm not ready to discuss yet. Her jaw tightened. But I promise you this. If you say yes, your life will change. Dramatically. For the better. I stared at the form in my hands. My name. Her name. A space for a date that hadn't been filled in yet. This is insane. I repeated that you've said that already. Because it bears repeating, she sighed. Lucas, I'm going to be blunt with you. I don't have time to court someone. I don't have time to date. I need a solution, and you're standing in front of me. We have chemistry. Last night proved that. We work together, which means we're compatible in terms of schedule and proximity. And you're not connected to my world, which makes you safe. Safe? Safe from the complications that come with people who know who I really am. I frowned. Who you really are? You're Emma from accounting. You wear cardigans and eat lunch alone. What complications could you possibly have? She laughed. It was a genuine laugh, warm and surprising. You have no idea, Lucas. None at all. Then tell me. Not yet. She picked up her phone and checked the time. The courthouse opens in 2 hours. If we leave now, we can be married by noon. After that, I'll answer any question you want. Deal? You're serious? A heart attack. I looked at the form again. Then at her. Then at the form again. Every rational part of my brain was screaming at me to say no. This was insane. This was the plot of a bad movie. This was the kind of decision that ruined lives. But there was another part of me, a smaller, quieter part, that was intrigued. That was tired of my predictable, mediocre existence. That wanted to know what it felt like to take a leap. That what's the worst that could happen? I muttered that I heard that. Emma smiled. That's the spirit. 2 hours later, I was standing in front of a judge in downtown Manhattan, holding Emma Chin's hand, listening to words that sounded like they belonged to someone else's life. "You, Lucas Miller, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" I looked at Emma. She looked back at me. There was no nervousness in her eyes. No doubt. Just that same calm certainty that had been there since I woke up. That I do. "You, Emma Chun, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" "I do." The judge smiled. "By the power vested in me by the state of New York, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride." Emma leaned in. Her lips brushed mine. Soft, quick, clinical. "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Chin Miller," the judge said. "Just Miller," Emma corrected. "He's keeping his name." That we walked out of the courthouse into the cold December air. The city was gray and loud and exactly the same as it had been 2 hours ago, but somehow I felt different. Lighter. Like I'd stepped into a parallel universe where the rules no longer applied. Emma pulled out her phone and typed something quickly. "What are you doing?" "Texting my father." She looked up at me. "Telling him the good news. Your father doesn't know?" "He will now." That I stopped walking. "Emma, wait. You didn't tell your family you were getting married today?" She turned back to face me. The wind caught her hair, blowing it across her face. She tucked it behind her ear. "If I had told them, they would have tried to stop me. This was easier." "Easier? You just got married without telling your parents. They'll get over it." She started walking again. "Come on. I'm hungry. There's a diner around the corner that makes the best pancakes in the city." That I followed her, my mind reeling. I had just married a woman I barely knew. A woman who apparently didn't think it was necessary to inform her family before tying the knot. A woman who, despite working in accounting at a mid-sized tech firm, carried herself with the confidence of someone used to getting what she wanted. Who the hell was Emma Chun? We sat in a booth at the diner. She ordered pancakes. I ordered coffee, mostly because my stomach was still too unsettled for solid food. "So," I said, wrapping my hands around the warm mug. "You promised answers." I did. She poured syrup over her pancakes in a precise spiral pattern. "Ask away. Who are you?" "Really?" She took a bite of pancake. Chewed. Swallowed. Then she looked at me with those sharp, knowing eyes. "My full name is Emma Chun Wei. My father is David Chun, as in Chin Group, as in the multinational conglomerate that owns approximately 17% of everything in this city." I stared at her. "The Chin Group? The one with the building on Park Avenue? The one that's always in the news?" "That's the one." "The Chin Group is worth approximately $43 billion. Give or take a few billion, depending on market fluctuations." I set down my coffee. My hands were shaking. "You're telling me that you, Emma from accounting, who eats lunch alone and wears cardigans from Target, are the daughter of a billionaire? $43 billion isn't billionaire territory, Lucas. It's multi-billionaire territory. There's a difference. Are you kidding me right now?" "I never kid." She took another bite of pancake. "Especially not about money. Why are you working at a tech company? Why accounting? Why any of this?" "Because I wanted to understand how normal people live." She said it so matter-of-factly that it took me a second to register the insult. I grew up in a bubble. Private schools. Private planes. Private everything. I wanted to see what the real world was like before I had to step into my role. "Your role? As heir to the Chin Group." She wiped her mouth with a napkin. "My father is stepping down in 2 years. When he does, control of the company passes to me. But there are conditions. One of which is that I must be married. Hence the shotgun wedding to a random guy from accounting. Hence the strategic partnership with a man who has no ties to my family's business interests." She nodded. "You're clean, Lucas. No connections. No agenda. No reason to betray me. Except that I'm your husband. Legally, yes. Practically, it's a temporary arrangement." She pushed her plate aside. 6 months. That's all I'm asking. After that, we dissolve the marriage and you walk away with enough money to start whatever life you want." "How much money?" "Enough." I leaned back in the booth. The diner hummed around us. The clatter of plates, the murmur of conversations, the hiss of the espresso machine. None of it felt real. "I need to think." I said. "You have until tomorrow morning." She slid a key card across the table. "This is for a suite at the Pierre. Go there. Sleep on it. Call me when you've made your decision that you're not coming. I have things to take care of." She stood up and pulled a $100 bill from her wallet, a $100 bill, for pancakes, and placed it on the table. "Enjoy the room. Order room service. It's on me. Everything is on you, apparently." She smiled. It was the first genuine smile I'd seen from her all day. "Yes, Lucas. Everything is on me now. Welcome to my world. She walked out of the diner, leaving me sitting alone in the booth, staring at a key card to a hotel suite I couldn't afford on my own, married to a woman I didn't know, who was apparently worth more money than God. That I finished my coffee. It was cold that I picked up the key card. The Pierre. I'd walked past that hotel 100 times. Never imagined I'd stay there. What the hell had I gotten myself into? That night, I stood in the penthouse suite of the Pierre Hotel, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. The room was bigger than my entire apartment. The bed looked like a cloud. The minibar was stocked with things I couldn't pronounce. That MY phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Unknown. Enjoying the view. Me. Who is this? Unknown. Your wife. Winking face me. How did you get my number? Unknown. I have my ways. Did you make a decision yet? Me. I'm still processing the fact that I married a billionaire heiress this morning. Unknown. Multi-billionaire. And technically, you married me before you knew that. So it's not like you married me for the money. Me. Maybe I'm a really good actor. Unknown. You're not. I can read you like a book, Lucas Miller. You're terrified, but you're also curious. That's why you went to the hotel instead of going home. I didn't respond. Because she was right. Unknown. Sleep on it. Tomorrow, we start our new life together. Try not to panic too much. Me. No promises. Unknown. Good night, husband. Me. Good night, wife. I put down my phone and looked out at the city. Somewhere out there, Emma Chun was probably planning our future like a military operation. And I was here, in a hotel room I couldn't afford, married to a woman I didn't know, about to step into a world I didn't understand. The craziest part? I wasn't sure I wanted to step out. 3 days past. 3 days of silence. Then no texts. No calls. No emails. Emma Chun, now legally Emma Chun Miller, though I refused to think of her that way, had vanished from my life as completely as if she'd never existed. On Monday morning, I dragged myself into the office, nursing the worst hangover of my adult life and a growing sense of unreality. The fluorescent lights in our open-plan office felt like an assault. The smell of burnt coffee from the break room made my stomach lurch. I kept expecting to see her, to walk past her cubicle and find her hunched over her monitor, clicking away at spreadsheets, wearing that same beige cardigan that suddenly seemed like a disguise. But her cubicle was empty. The little succulent plant I'd noticed in my apartment, the one that wasn't mine, was gone too. Had I dreamed it? Hey, Lucas. Marcus from IT waved me over. Did you hear about Emma? My blood went cold. What about her? Dude, she quit. Effective immediately. HR sent out the memo Friday afternoon. He shook his head. Wild timing, right? Right after the party. Guess she got wasted and decided corporate life wasn't for her. She quit? My voice came out strangled. Just like that? Yeah. Apparently she gave 2 weeks notice but asked to expedite it. Said she had personal matters to attend to. Marcus grinned. Probably eloped with some rich guy. Wouldn't surprise me. She always dressed like she had money, even if it was all from Target. I nodded dumbly and walked to my desk. My computer screen blurred in front of my eyes. Emma had quit. She'd married me, then disappeared. I pulled up my email. Nothing from her. Checked my phone. No missed calls, no messages. The last communication I had from her was that single text from Saturday night. Good night, husband. I'd slept in that ridiculous hotel suite Saturday and Sunday night, too afraid to go back to my apartment, too confused to do anything else. Room service had become my only companion. I'd ordered breakfast, lunch, and dinner, staring out at Central Park and trying to convince myself this was all a dream. Monday night, I finally forced myself to return to my apartment. The key turned in the lock. I pushed open the door. The smell hit me first. Not stale pizza. Not desperation. Something else entirely. Clean. Expensive. Like hotel sheets that cost more per night than my weekly paycheck. The living room looked different. My thrift store couch was still there, but someone had added 2 leather armchairs that definitely weren't mine. A vintage rug covered most of the scratched wood floor. The bare walls now had abstract art. Real art, not posters. In sleek black frames. I walked toward the kitchen, my footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. The coffee maker was gone. In its place sat a gleaming silver machine I recognized from the pages of design magazines. Next to it, a bag of beans with Italian writing and a price tag that made my eyes water. My instant coffee, the cheap stuff in the plastic tub, was nowhere to be found. Hello? My voice sounded small in the vastness of my suddenly dash, not dash my dash apartment. No answer that I checked the bedroom. My bed was still there, but the sheets had been changed. Crisp white cotton that felt like silk against my fingers. My dresser remained, but someone had organized my chaotic drawer of socks and underwear into neat rows. The closet was the final straw that my side was unchanged. The same pathetic collection of jeans, t-shirts, and button-downs I'd accumulated over years of careful budgeting. But the other side, dresses, skirts, blouses in colors I'd never seen Emma wear. A row of shoes that looked expensive even to my untrained eye. A cashmere coat that probably cost more than my car. This wasn't happening that I backed out of the closet and stumbled into the living room, collapsing onto the new leather chair. My hands were shaking. Had I lost my mind? Was I hallucinating? Maybe the alcohol had done permanent damage. Maybe Emma hadn't been real at all. My phone rang that I fumbled for it, nearly dropping it twice. Unknown number that I answered on the third ring. Hello, did you make it home okay? Emma's voice. Calm, clear, infuriatingly normal. Emma? My voice cracked. Where the hell have you been? What's going on with my apartment? I've been busy. She sounded like she was smiling. And your apartment is fine. Actually, it's better than fine. I improved it. You what? I moved in. She said it like she was announcing the weather. I figured since we're married and all, we should probably live together. At least for the duration of our agreement. You can't just… Emma, you can't move into my apartment without asking. Technically, it's our apartment now. She paused. Also, I paid off your lease. 6 months up front. So you don't have to worry about that anymore. My mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. You. What? Your rent was $2 for $100 a month. It paid $14 for $100. It's handled. She sounded pleased with herself. Oh, and I canceled your cable subscription. You don't need it. I installed streaming services on your TV. All the premium channels that I don't. Emma, stop. This is too much. You can't just… Actually, I can. Her tone shifted, became cooler. Businesslike. Lucas, we made a deal. 6 months. During that time, I'm your wife. Which means I live here. Which means I get a say in how we live. You agreed to this that I agreed to marry you. Not to let you redecorate my entire life. Your life needed redecorating. She sighed. Look, I know this is overwhelming. But trust me, this is better for both of us. You'll see. When are you coming back? Already here. I froze. Check your door. I looked up. The apartment door was slightly ajar. I stood slowly, my legs unsteady. Walked to the door. Pushed it open. Emma stood in the hallway, dragging a wheeled suitcase that looked like it cost more than my rent. She wore dark jeans and a black turtleneck that fit her perfectly. No cardigan. No glasses. She looked powerful, in control, like someone who belonged in a boardroom, not an accountant's cubicle. Hi. She said. Hi. I managed. She wheeled her suitcase past me into the apartment. I followed her like a ghost. She parked the suitcase in the living room and unzipped it. Started unpacking. Methodically. Efficiently. Like she'd done this 100 times. Emma, kitchens first. She pulled out containers of food, organic vegetables, expensive cheeses, packages of meat with butcher labels I recognized from the Upper East Side. I restocked everything. Threw out the expired stuff. Your fridge was a health hazard. I like my fridge. You like surviving on frozen meals and takeout. That ends now. She pulled out a stack of cookbooks. I'll cook. You clean up. Fair. I don't. You don't cook. I know. She looked at me. Lucas, I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to help you. You work 60-hour weeks and subsist on garbage. That's not sustainable. Not for you. Not for anyone. I'm fine. You're not fine. She said it gently. Firmly. You're tired. You're lonely. You're stuck in a job you hate because you're afraid to leave. I see you, Lucas. Even when you don't think anyone's looking. I had no response to that. She continued unpacking. Found my bathroom. Came back with my old toothbrush in her hand. This goes in the trash. Hey, that's I bought us matching ones. Electric. With travel cases. They're on the counter. She dropped my old toothbrush into the wastebasket. Also, your shampoo was terrible. I replaced everything in there. I sank back onto the leather chair. This is insane. I it. She knelt in front of me, meeting my eyes. Or is it the first time in years someone has actually cared about whether you live or die? The words hit harder than I expected. She stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the street below. You know what's really crazy? She said quietly. That you think this is about money. It's not. This is about survival. Mine and yours. Your survival? She turned back to me. Lucas, I married you for a reason. A specific reason. And part of that reason requires us to be convincing. As a couple, living together, acting like a real married couple. That means sharing a space, sharing meals, sharing a life, at least for a while. I don't understand. You don't have to. Not yet. She returned to unpacking. But you do have to decide if you're going to honor our agreement. Because if you're not, say so now. I'll move out. We'll annul the marriage. You can go back to your frozen dinners and your lonely apartment and your safe, small life. She looked at me then. Really looked at me. But if you stay, if you give this a chance, I promise you won't regret it. That I sat there, surrounded by evidence of a life I didn't recognize, married to a woman I barely knew, who claimed to be a billionaire heiress, who had just offered me a choice that felt less like a choice and more like a trap. Okay, I said finally. She raised an eyebrow. Okay, what? Okay, I'll try. My voice sounded foreign to my own ears. But we need rules. Rules. She considered this. Like what? Like, you can't just throw away my stuff without asking. Deal. And you have to tell me what's going on. Eventually, she agreed. And we're still doing the 6-month thing? 6 months. She nodded. Then we reassess. Okay. I stood up. My legs felt weak. Okay. She smiled. It was the first real smile I'd seen from her since the courthouse. Warm. Almost relieved. Good. She returned to her unpacking. Now come help me with the bedroom. We need to figure out how to merge our closets without killing each other. I followed her, my mind racing. Somewhere between the courthouse and this moment, my life had been hijacked by a ghost. A beautiful, wealthy, terrifying ghost who claimed to be my wife. And the scariest part of me was starting to think I might not want her to leave. That night, we ate dinner at our dining table. Emma had made roasted chicken and vegetables. Real food. Food that required actual cooking. It tasted better than anything I'd eaten in months. We ate in silence for the first 10 minutes. So, I said finally, pushing my empty plate away. What now? Emma was already clearing the table. Now we establish routines. Tomorrow, I'll go to the office. You're going back to work? Of course. I still have responsibilities. She carried dishes to the sink. Though I'll be working from home more often, which means you'll see more of me. Great. While I'm gone, she continued, you'll go to work. Keep your head down. Don't mention our marriage to anyone. Why not? Because it complicates things. She turned on the faucet. For now, we keep this between us. Emma, Lucas. She looked over her shoulder at me. Trust me. Please. Just trust me for a little while. I wanted to argue. Wanted to demand answers. But something in her voice, something tired, something strained beneath the confidence, made me hold my tongue. Fine, I said. But I have questions. You always have questions. She started washing dishes. Write them down. I'll answer what I can. I stood up, walked to the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, our bed now, I supposed, and pulled out my phone, started a note. Labeled it, Questions for Emma. Why did you really marry me? What family situation are you avoiding? How did you afford to pay off my lease without blinking? Why do you need to pretend to be married? What happens after 6 months? Are you really a billionaire? Why do you care what I eat? What am I getting myself into? I stared at the list. 8 questions. 8 cracks in the foundation of whatever this was. Behind me, I heard the water shut off. Footsteps. The soft sound of Emma moving around the apartment, making herself at home in my life. My phone buzzed at a text from an unknown number. Unknown. Going to bed. Don't stay up too late overthinking. Me. How did you get my number? Unknown. I have my ways. Also, I forwarded your work email to my private account. Just in case. Me. Excuse me? Unknown. Relax. I'm not reading your emails. Just monitoring for anything unusual. You'll thank me later. Me. This is getting creepy. Unknown. This is called being thorough. Good night, Lucas. Me. Good night, Emma. I set down my phone and lay back on the bed. Stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in this apartment, my wife was getting ready for my wife. The thought still didn't feel real. I closed my eyes. Tomorrow, I'd go back to work. Pretend nothing had changed. But everything had changed, and I had a feeling the worst was yet to come. 3 weeks. 21 days since I signed my name next to Emma Chenway's on a marriage certificate that still felt like a forgery. 21 nights sleeping in a guest room that was nicer than any apartment I'd ever lived in. 21 mornings waking up next to a woman who was simultaneously my wife and a complete stranger. The routine had settled into something almost comfortable, almost normal. I went to work at Novatech Solutions, where I managed projects and pretended my personal life wasn't a circus. Emma went to wherever Emma went during the day. She never told me, and I stopped asking after the fifth time she deflected with a vague meetings that we ate dinner together most nights. She cooked. I cleaned. We talked about nothing important: movies, weather, the absurd price of avocados in Manhattan. Anything to avoid the elephant in the room. The fact that I was married to a woman whose last name appeared on buildings I couldn't afford to enter, that I told myself this was fine. Temporary. 6 months, then annulment, then back to my boring, predictable life. Then the call came. It was a Tuesday. Gray sky. Rain tapping against the office windows like impatient fingers. I was staring at my spreadsheet, pretending to care about quarterly projections, when my phone buzzed. Unknown number that I almost didn't answer. But something, call it instinct, call it paranoia, made me swipe right. Is this Lucas Miller? The voice was male, professional, with an edge of urgency that immediately put me on alert. Speaking. Who's this? Mark Chun. Richard Chen's assistant. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Richard Chun, Emma's brother. The one who, according to everything Emma had told me, was my enemy. Mr. Chin would like to schedule a meeting. At your earliest convenience. That I'm busy. I'm sure you are. Mark's tone was polite but insistent. However, Mr. Chun believes you'll want to hear what he has to say. It concerns your employer. Novatech Solutions. My blood went cold. What about Novatech? That's something Mr. Chun would prefer to discuss in person. Shall I send a car? I hesitated. Every instinct told me this was a trap. Richard Chun had made his feelings about me clear through a series of passive-aggressive comments delivered via Emma's mother. He thought I was a gold digger, a nobody, a stain on the family name. But if this was about Novatech, fine. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Send the address. Excellent. Mr. Chin looks forward to meeting you. The line went dead. I stared at my phone for a long moment. Then I dialed Emma, straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. I sent a text. Your brother's assistant just called me. Says he wants to talk about Novatech. What's going on? No response. I spent the rest of the day in a fog of anxiety, unable to concentrate on anything. By 6 p.m., I gave up and went home. The apartment was empty. Emma's laptop was gone. Her usual spot on the couch was vacant. A note on the kitchen counter read, "Dinner in the fridge. Late meeting. Don't wait up." I ate alone. Went to bed alone. Stared at the ceiling until exhaustion finally pulled me under. The next morning, I put on my best suit and took a cab to an address in Midtown that turned out to be a private club. White marble steps. Brass railings. A doorman who looked at me like I'd wandered in from the street. Name, Lucas Miller. Here to see Richard Chun. The doorman's expression flickered, recognition mixed with disapproval, before he nodded and gestured toward the elevator. 4th floor. Mr. Chin's private dining room. The elevator was paneled in wood so dark it was almost black. It rose silently, depositing me in a hallway lined with oil paintings of men who looked like they'd never worked a day in their lives. Richard Chun was waiting at a table by the window. He was younger than I expected, maybe early 40s, with the kind of polished handsomeness that came from good genes and better grooming. His suit was charcoal gray, perfectly cut. His watch probably cost more than my education. He stood as I approached. Extended his hand. Lucas. Thank you for coming. I shook it. His grip was firm, brief, clinical. Sit, please. He gestured to the chair across from him. Coffee? I'm fine. Suit yourself. He signaled a waiter, who materialized instantly with a cup of black coffee that he placed in front of Richard. I'll get straight to the point. I know about your marriage to my sister. I said nothing. I also know about the arrangement. The 6-month timeline. The annulment clause. He took a sip of his coffee. Emma thinks she's clever. She's not wrong. She is clever. But she's also naive. Naive how? She thinks she can control this situation. Control you. Control the family. He set down his cup. She's wrong. There are forces at play she doesn't fully understand. Like what? Richard leaned back. His eyes studied me with the cold precision of a predator sizing up prey. Like the fact that Novatech Solutions is about to collapse. My stomach dropped. What are you talking about? I'm talking about Horizon Capital Partners. He said the name slowly, savoring it. Your company's largest investor. They're pulling out. Tomorrow morning. leaving Novatech with approximately 4 months of runway. How do you know that? Because I made it happen. The words hung in the air like smoke. You. I couldn't finish the sentence that I orchestrated the withdrawal. Richard's voice was calm, conversational. A few phone calls. A favor called in. A promise of future business. Simple, really. Why? Because I need to test you, Lucas. He leaned forward. My sister has chosen you as her partner. For reasons I don't fully understand. But if you're going to be part of this family, you need to prove you're worthy of the position. Be why watching my company die? By showing me what you're made of. He pulled an envelope from his jacket pocket and slid it across the table. Inside, you'll find a check. $50 million. Made out to Novatech Solutions. I stared at the envelope like it contained a bomb. What's the catch? No catch. Richard smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Invest the money. Save the company. Prove you can handle pressure. And if I don't take it, then Novatech dies. You lose your job. Your options become worthless. And I have all the evidence I need to convince my father that you're not fit to be part of this family. Evidence of what? That you're weak. He stood up. You have 24 hours to decide. Take the check, save your company, and earn my respect. Or refuse, and watch everything fall apart. He walked away, leaving me alone at the table with the envelope. I picked it up. It was heavy. Real. Inside, a check for $50 million, signed by Richard Chun. I could end this right now. Take the money. Save Novatech. Prove to Emma's family that I wasn't a liability. But something felt wrong. Too easy. Too convenient. I pocketed the envelope and walked out. I didn't go to the office. I went home. Emma still wasn't there. I called her. Voicemail. Called again. Same result. I sat on the couch, staring at the check, trying to figure out my next move. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Unknown. Don't take the money. I frowned. Typed back. Who is this? Unknown. Someone who knows Richard better than you do. That check comes with strings. Lots of them. Me. What kind of strings? Unknown. The kind that will leave you owing him everything. Your company. Your freedom. Your marriage to me. Why should I trust you? Unknown. Because I'm the only one telling you the truth. Ask Emma. She'll confirm. I stared at the screen. Then I dialed Emma again. This time, she answered, Lucas. I know about the meeting. Your brother offered me $50 million. I know that he said he's the reason Horizon is pulling out. I know that too. Then why didn't you warn me? Silence. Emma, because I needed to see what you would do. Her voice was quiet. Careful. Richard is testing you. But I'm testing you too. Testing me for what? To see if you trust me. Or if you'll take the easy way out. I closed my eyes. Rubbed my temples. This is insane. Your family is insane. Welcome to the Chin family. She almost sounded amused. Don't take the money, Lucas. I have a better plan. What kind of plan? The kind that doesn't involve owing my brother anything. She paused. Meet me at the office. Novatech. 1 hour. I'll explain everything. The line went dead. I looked at the check one more time. $50 million. Enough to solve all my problems. Or create new ones. I folded it, put it in my pocket, and headed out the door. 1 hour later, I walked into Novatech's main conference room. Emma was already there, standing at the head of the table, a laptop open in front of her. She was wearing a black blazer, white blouse, and an expression of absolute confidence. Close the door. I did. Sit. I Saturday. Show me the check. I pulled it out and slid it across the table. She picked it up, examined it, then set it aside without comment. But Richard's move was predictable, she said. He's been trying to undermine me since we were children. Using you to get to me is exactly his style. Oh, what's your plan? My plan is better than his. She turned her laptop toward me. On the screen was a document, a term sheet from Chun Capital Partners. I'm investing in Novatech directly. $50 million. No strings. No hidden clauses. I stared at the screen. You have $50 million. I have access to $50 million. She corrected. There's a difference. But yes, the funds are available. Why would you do this? Because Novatech is a good investment. Because I believe in the technology. Because I believe in you. She met my eyes. And because I refuse to let my brother control my life. Or yours. But if you invest, Richard will know. He'll tell your father. Let him. Her voice hardened. My father trusts my judgment. Richard's opinion doesn't matter. I leaned back in my chair. My head was spinning. Oh, what do I do? Tomorrow morning, you go to work. You act normal. You let Horizon deliver their bad news. She closed the laptop. And then, When everyone thinks it's over, you step up. You present my offer. You save the company. And Richard will be furious. But he'll also be impressed. She smiled. That's the thing about my brother. He respects people who fight back. I looked at her. Really looked at her. Why are you doing this, Emma? You barely know me. You could have picked anyone. Why go through all this trouble? She was quiet for a long moment. Then, because when I met you, you were drowning. And no one was throwing you a lifeline. She stood up. I'm not doing this for charity, Lucas. I'm doing it because I think you're capable of more than you know. And I want to see what happens when you finally realize it. She walked toward the door. Pause. Point. One more thing. What? Don't mention the check from Richard. To anyone. If my father finds out about this little game, there will be consequences. Consequences for who? For both of us. She opened the door. See you tomorrow, CEO. She was gone. I sat alone in the conference room, staring at the term sheet on her laptop, trying to process everything that had just happened. My brother-in-law had tried to buy me off. My wife had countered with a better offer. And I was about to become the CEO of a company I joined as a project manager. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed. The city hummed with its usual chaos. And I sat there, in the quiet of an empty conference room, realizing that my life had officially become unrecognizable. The next morning, Horizon Capital delivered their news. The office went into crisis mode. Jason called emergency meetings. Lawyers were consulted. Spreadsheets were updated with increasingly dire projections. By noon, the mood was funeral-level grim. At 2 p.m., I walked into Jason's office. We need to talk. He looked up from his computer, exhausted. Unless you have a miracle in your pocket, Lucas, I don't have time. I have a term sheet. He frowned. What? I placed Emma's document on his desk. Shin Capital Partners. $50 million. No preconditions beyond standard governance. Jason stared at the document. Read it. Read it again. How did you? I have connections. I kept my voice neutral. Do you want to save the company or not? He looked at me for a long moment. Something shifted in his eyes. Respect, maybe, or suspicion. Hard to tell. Yes, he said finally. Yes, I want to save the company. Then signed. He picked up a pen. Hesitated. Lucas, if this blows up, it won't. He signed. And just like that, Novatech Solutions was saved, and I became the man who saved it. The news spread fast. By the end of the day, everyone in the office knew about the mysterious investment. Whispers followed me through the hallways. Colleagues looked at me differently, with curiosity, with respect, with fear that I didn't care, because for the first time in my life, I'd done something that mattered. I'd stepped up. I'd taken a risk, and it had paid off. When I got home that night, Emma was waiting for me with a bottle of champagne. Congratulations, Mr. CEO. I took the glass she offered. It's interim CEO details. She clinked her glass against mine. How does it feel? I thought about it. Terrifying, I admitted. But also, good if that's the feeling of growth. She sipped her champagne. Get used to it. There's more coming. I didn't ask what she meant. I didn't need to. Whatever was coming, I was ready. The champagne buzz lasted exactly 12 hours. At 6 a.m. the next morning, my phone exploded with notifications. News alerts, emails, text messages from numbers I didn't recognize. The subject line of every single one was variations of the same phrase. Novatech acquisition. I sat up in bed, still half asleep, and scrolled through the chaos. TechCrunch. Novatech Solutions receives $50 million injection from mysterious investor Bloomberg. Shin Capital Partners enters health tech arena with Novatech deal. Wall Street Journal. Sources confirmed Chun family involvement in Novatech rescue. My stomach dropped. The news was everywhere. And buried in the details, somewhere between the analyst commentary and the stock price speculation, was my name. Lucas Miller. Mentioned as the key intermediary who brokered the deal. I hadn't authorized this. I hadn't spoken to any journalists. Someone had leaked the information, and whoever it was had put a target on my back. I grabbed my phone and called Emma. She answered on the first ring. I know what? That my name is splashed across every financial news outlet in the country? That too. Her voice was calm, but there was an edge beneath it. Richard leaked the story. He's trying to force your hand. Force my hand to do what? To take a side. Publicly. If you're associated with the deal, you're associated with me. Which means you're associated with the Chin family. Which means Richard can paint you as my puppet. I am your puppet. You're my husband. There's a difference. She paused. Get dressed. I'm sending a car. We need to get to Novatech before the board convenes an emergency meeting. Board meeting? I didn't authorize any board meeting. You don't have to. Jason called it. He's panicking. The press coverage makes him look weak, like he couldn't save his own company without outside help. She exhaled sharply. He's going to try to block the deal. He can't block the deal. He already signed. He can try to rescind. Claim duress. Argue that the terms weren't properly vetted. Her voice hardened. Trust me, Lucas. Rich people have been finding ways to break contracts since contracts existed. We need to get ahead of this. The line went dead. I stared at my phone for exactly 3 seconds before jumping out of bed. 20 minutes later, I was in the back of a black SUV, speeding toward Novatech's office. Emma sat beside me, her laptop open, typing furiously. She was wearing a navy blue power suit and an expression that suggested she was ready to burn the building down if necessary. Talk to me, I said. Jason called an emergency board meeting for 8 a.m. That gives us 40 minutes. She didn't look up from her screen. I've already spoken to our legal team. They're preparing an injunction in case Jason tries to block the transfer. Our legal team, Chun Capital Partners' legal team, which is now partially your legal team. She finally looked at me. You need to understand something, Lucas. This isn't just about Novatech anymore. Richard has made this personal. If we lose this deal, it proves he can control our lives. And if we win, then we prove the opposite. She closed her laptop. We prove that I chose wisely. That you're not just a random variable in my equation. That you're capable of holding your ground. I swallowed. No pressure. Pressure is a privilege. She said it like a mantra. Embrace it. We arrived at Novatech at 7:45 a.m. The office was already buzzing with tension. Employees huddled in groups, whispering. The receptionist looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Mr. Miller. The board is assembled in the main conference room. Already? The meeting isn't until 8. That they started early. She lowered her voice. Mr. Chun is here. I froze. Which Mr. Chun? Both of them. I turned to Emma. Her expression was unreadable. Richard is here, she said. Not a question. And your father? Apparently. She straightened her blazer. This just got more interesting. We walked to the conference room. The door was closed. Through the frosted glass, I could see silhouettes. At least a dozen figures seated around the table. Emma pushed open the door without knocking. The room fell silent. Jason sat at the head of the table, flanked by the board members I recognized. Margaret from finance, Thomas from operations, a few external investors I'd met exactly once. On the opposite side sat Richard Chun, looking impeccably polished in a charcoal suit. And at the far end, in a chair that seemed to command the entire room, sat David Chun, Emma's father. The patriarch of the Chun Empire. He was older than I remembered from photographs, 70, maybe 75, but his eyes were sharp as knives. He studied me as I entered, his gaze traveling from my shoes to my face with the thoroughness of a man who'd spent decades judging people's worth in seconds. Lucas. His voice was deep, measured. Thank you for joining us.Mr. Chun. I nodded. I wasn't aware you'd be attending, neither was I. He gestured to the empty chair beside him. Sit. Both of you. Emma and I exchanged a glance. Then we Saturday. David Chun waited until we were settled before continuing. I'll be brief. I've been informed of the proposed investment in Novatech Solutions. I've also been informed of certain irregularities in how this deal was structured. There are no irregularities, Emma said smoothly. The term sheet was standard. The valuation was fair. Jason signed voluntarily. Under pressure, Richard interjected. The company was hours from collapse. Jason wasn't in a position to negotiate, which is precisely why the investment was necessary. Emma's voice remained calm. Would you have preferred Novatech to fail? To see 60 employees lose their jobs? I would have preferred transparency. Richard turned to his father. Emma acted unilaterally. She didn't consult the family. She didn't seek board approval from Chun Capital Partners. She made a personal decision using company resources. The resources were mine to deploy, Emma countered. I have discretionary authority over investments under $50 million. The terms fall within my mandate. Barely, still within. David Chun raised a hand. The room fell silent. Enough. He looked at Emma. You're correct. The investment falls within your mandate. Technically, you did nothing wrong. That Emma's expression didn't change, but I saw a flicker of relief in her eyes. However, David continued, this situation raises larger questions. Questions about judgment, about discretion. About whether personal relationships are clouding business decisions that they're not. I said. Everyone turned to look at me that I hadn't planned to speak. The words came out before I could stop them. But now that I had the room's attention, I couldn't back down. Mr. Chun, I understand why this looks suspicious. A sudden marriage. A sudden investment. It seems like a conflict of interest. I met his gaze. But I've been at Novatech for 4 years. I know this company inside and out. I know its strengths, its weaknesses, and its potential. The investment Emma made isn't about me. It's about the technology, the team, the market opportunity, and you expect me to believe that your relationship with my daughter played no role in her decision. I expect you to evaluate the deal on its merits. I held his stare. Run the numbers. Talk to the analysts. Look at the projections. If the investment is unsound, reject it. But don't reject it because you don't trust me. Silence. David Chin studied me for a long moment. Then, slowly, a smile crept across his face. Interesting, he said. Very interesting. That he turned to Richard. Your assessment? Richard's jaw tightened. The investment is sound. I've reviewed the projections. Novatech's AI diagnostic platform has genuine potential. The valuation is fair. Then what's the problem? The problem is precedent. Richard's voice was controlled, but I could hear the frustration beneath it. If Emma is allowed to make unilateral decisions based on personal relationships, it sets a dangerous example. Other family members will expect similar latitude. Other family members aren't managing partners of Chin Capital Partners. David's voice was final. Emma has earned her position. She's proven her judgment. If she believes in this investment, I trust her. Richard's face went rigid. Father, the matter is settled. David stood. The investment proceeds. Lucas retains his position as interim CEO. Emma continues to oversee the partnership. He looked at me. I expect results, Lucas. Novatech has 6 months to show measurable progress. If it doesn't, we'll revisit this conversation. Understood. David nodded once, then walked out of the room. The silence he left behind was deafening. Richard stood slowly, adjusting his cuffs. He walked past me, pausing at the door. You got lucky today, he said quietly. Luck runs out. He left. Emma exhaled. Well, that went better than expected. Better? I turned to her. Your father just put a 6-month clock on my career. 6 months is plenty of time. She smiled. Besides, now you have something to prove. I stared at her. You're enjoying this. Immensely. She stood. Come on, CEO. You have a company to run. The next few weeks were a blur. I threw myself into the work, determined to justify David Chin's conditional faith. I learned the company's operations inside and out. I met with every department head. I reviewed every product roadmap, every financial projection, every hiring plan. I fired 2 managers who'd been coasting for years, promoted 3 junior employees who'd been overlooked, restructured the engineering team to focus on the AI diagnostic platform that Emma's investment was funding. The changes weren't popular. People grumbled. Some quit. But the ones who stayed were the ones who believed in the mission. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, things started to improve. Productivity increased. Deadlines were met. The first beta version of the AI platform launched ahead of schedule. I was in my office late one night, reviewing the latest metrics, when my phone buzzed at a text from Emma. Emma, still at the office? Me. You know I am. Emma, come home. I have news. Me. Good news or bad news? Emma, come home and find out. I saved my work, shut down my computer, and headed out. The apartment was dark when I arrived. Strange. Emma was usually home by now, lights blazing, dinner on the stove. I walked through the living room. Empty. The kitchen. Empty. Emma, in here. Her voice came from the bedroom. I walked down the hall and pushed open the door. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, her laptop open, her expression unreadable. What's going on? Close the door. I did. Sit. I sat beside her. She turned the laptop toward me. On the screen was an email. From Richard Chun. Addressed to the entire Chin family board. I started reading. My blood ran cold. The email detailed an investigation Richard had conducted, secretly, without authorization, into my background, my finances, my family, my history, and there, in black and white, was a discovery I'd spent my entire adult life trying to bury. A criminal record. 7 years old. A misdemeanor charge for possession of a controlled substance. Dismissed after completing a diversion program. But dismissed didn't mean erased. And in the world of billionaires and boardrooms, a dismissed charge was still a weapon. When did you find out about this? Emma's voice was quiet. 7 years ago. I was 25. Stupid. At a party. The cops raided the place. I had a joint in my pocket. I couldn't look at her. I did the program. Paid my fines. Got it dismissed. I thought it was behind me. Richard dug it up, apparently. I finally met her eyes. I'm sorry. I should have told you yes. You should have that I didn't think it mattered. It was 7 years ago. I was a different person. It matters because Richard is using it. She turned the laptop back toward herself. He's demanding that the board reconsider my investment authority, arguing that I failed to conduct proper due diligence on my spouse. What happens now? She was quiet for a long moment. Then she closed the laptop. Now we fight. How? The evidence is right there. The evidence is a dismissed misdemeanor from 7 years ago. It's embarrassing, but it's not disqualifying. She stood up. Richard thinks this will break us. He's wrong. How can you be so sure? She walked over to me, placed her hands on my shoulders. Because I didn't marry you for your perfect record, Lucas. I married you for who you are. And who you are is someone who made a mistake, learned from it, and moved on. She squeezed my shoulders. That's not a weakness. That's strength. I looked at her. Really looked at her. Why are you doing this? I asked. Why go to bat for me? You barely know me. I know enough. She smiled. Besides, I'm a great judge of character. I laughed despite myself. Are you? I married you, didn't I? She kissed me. Soft. Brief. Unexpected. Then she pulled back. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow, we have a war to win. The next morning, Emma and I walked into Chun Capital Partners headquarters together. The building was a glass tower in the heart of Midtown, 40 stories of corporate power. The lobby was all marble and chrome, with a security desk that looked like it could repel a small army. Emma marched past the desk without breaking stride. The guards nodded at her. They didn't stop me. We took a private elevator to the top floor. The doors opened onto a reception area that was larger than my entire apartment. A young woman sat behind a curved desk, her smile professional and practiced. Mrs. Chunwei, your father is expecting you. Of course he is. Emma didn't slow down. Conference room A. Tell Richard to be there in 10 minutes. Yes, ma'am. We walked down a corridor lined with abstract art. Emma pushed open a set of double doors, revealing a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. David Chun was already there, seated at the head of the table. He looked up as we entered. Emma, Lucas, I was wondering when you'd arrive. You knew we were coming? I assumed. He gestured to the chairs. Sit. Richard will be here shortly. We sat. The silence stretched. Richard entered exactly 8 minutes later. He was accompanied by 2 lawyers in identical gray suits. They flanked him like bodyguards. Father. Richard nodded at David, then turned to me. Lucas, I'm surprised you showed up. Why would I hide? Most people would, when their secrets are exposed. He placed a folder on the table. I have documentation, court records, police reports, everything the board needs to see. Show them. Richard's eyes narrowed. Excuse me, show them. I repeated. Open the folder. Let everyone see. Richard hesitated. Then he opened the folder. Inside were the documents he'd described. Court filings, arrest records, program completion certificates. I picked up the top page. Held it up. This is from 7 years ago. I was at a party. The police raided it. I had a small amount of marijuana in my pocket. I was charged, completed a diversion program, and the charge was dismissed. I set the paper down. That's the entire story. It's a criminal record. Richard said that it's a dismissed misdemeanor. I met his eyes. And you know what else? I disclosed this to Emma before we got married. She knew. She didn't care. Richard's face flickered. That's not possible. I checked your communications. You checked my emails, my texts, my call logs. I stood up. But you didn't check our conversations. Because you assumed I'd hide it. You assumed I was ashamed. I am ashamed. I continued. I'm ashamed that I was stupid enough to put myself in that situation. I'm ashamed that I let peer pressure override my judgment. But I'm not ashamed of who I am today. And I'm not going to let a mistake from 7 years ago define me. I turned to David Chun. Mr. Chun, I understand why this looks bad. But I ask you to consider the context. A young man, barely out of college, makes a poor decision. He takes responsibility. He completes the program. He moves on with his life. He builds a career. He meets your daughter. He falls in love. I paused. Is that really the kind of person you want to punish? Silence. David Chun looked at me for a long moment. Then he looked at Richard. Richard, leave us. Father, leave us. Richard's jaw tightened. He gathered his folder and walked out, his lawyers trailing behind him. The door closed. David Chun turned to me. Sit down. Lucas. I Saturday you have guts, he said. I'll give you that. Walking in here, facing Richard directly, defending yourself without a lawyer. He shook his head. Most people would have crumbled that I had nothing to hide. Everyone has something to hide. He leaned back. The question is whether it defines them. Your mistake doesn't define you, but how you handle it does. He stood up. Walked to the window. I'm going to tell you something I've never told anyone outside this family. He turned to face us. When I was 22, I was arrested for fraud. Emma's jaw dropped. What? It was a misunderstanding. A business partner had falsified documents without my knowledge, but I was the one who signed them. I spent 6 months fighting the charges before they were dropped. He looked at me. If that arrest had stuck, I wouldn't be standing here today. I wouldn't have built Chin Group. I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't have had Emma. He walked back to the table. Richard doesn't know about this. No one does. I've kept it buried for 50 years. He sat down. But I'm telling you now, Lucas, because I want you to understand something. I don't judge people by their mistakes. I judge them by their recoveries. He extended his hand. Welcome to the family. Officially. I shook his hand. His grip was firm, warm. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. He smiled. You still have 6 months to prove yourself. And Richard isn't going to stop. He's just going to get more creative. I'm ready. Good. He turned to Emma. You chose well, daughter. Emma smiled. I know that we left the building hand in hand. The sun was bright. The city was loud. And for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I felt like I belonged. Your father was arrested? I asked as we walked. Apparently. Emma shook her head. I can't believe he never told me. Family secrets. Everyone has them, apparently. She squeezed my hand. You handled that well, by the way. Thanks. I had a good teacher. Flattery will get you everywhere. We walked in comfortable silence for a block. Then Emma stopped. What? She turned to face me. I meant what I said. I didn't marry you for your perfect record. I married you because I saw something in you. What did you see? Potential. She smiled. And a really nice ass. I laughed. That's the only reason. Those are the only reasons that matter. She kissed me. Longer this time. Deeper. When she pulled back, her eyes were bright. Let's go home. Husband. Lead the way. Wife. We walked into the future together. 3 days passed since the boardroom showdown. 3 days of relative peace. Emma and I fell into a rhythm that felt almost domestic. Morning coffee, shared newspapers, parallel work on our laptops in the living room. She attended her meetings at Chun Capital Partners. I ran Novatech. We met in the middle for dinners that she cooked, and I cleaned up after. It was almost normal. Almost out on Thursday afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from Emma. Emma, pack a bag. We're going to Long Island this weekend. Me. Why? Emma, family dinner. Mandatory attendance. My mother insists. Me. Define family dinner. Emma, the entire Chin clan. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. Approximately 47 people. Plus you. Me. 47 people? That's not a dinner. That's a wedding. Emma, wait until you see the size of the house. Pack formal. Black tie optional but strongly encouraged. Me. I don't own formal wear. Emma, check your closet. I had some things delivered. I walked to the bedroom and opened the closet. Sure enough, a garment bag hung where my old suits used to be. Inside was a midnight blue tuxedo, custom tailored, with a note pinned to the lapel for the family dinner. Try not to embarrass me. Yeah, I stared at the tuxedo for a long moment. Then I texted her back. Me. You had a tuxedo delivered to our apartment without telling me. Emma, I have a lot of things delivered without telling you. You'll get used to it. Me. Will I? Emma, probably not. But you'll learn to stop asking questions. I laughed despite myself. She wasn't wrong. Saturday arrived faster than I expected. We drove to Long Island in a black Range Rover that Emma insisted on driving herself. She handled the vehicle like she handled everything else, with absolute confidence, weaving through traffic with the precision of someone who'd never doubted a decision in her life. The city melted away, replaced by tree-lined roads and sprawling estates. The further we got from Manhattan, the larger the houses became. Iron gates, long driveways, mansions that looked like they belonged in European magazines. Your family lives here? Some of them. Emma didn't take her eyes off the road. My parents have the main estate. My uncle has the property next door. My cousins are scattered throughout the area. Scattered. Right at you'll see. She glanced at me. Try to relax. They're going to scrutinize you regardless of what you do. Might as well enjoy the free food. Comforting. I tried. We turned onto a private road lined with ancient oaks. Their branches formed a canopy overhead, filtering the afternoon light into dappled patterns on the pavement. After a quarter mile, the road opened onto a circular driveway dominated by a fountain in the shape of a rearing horse. Beyond the fountain stood the Chun estate. It was massive. Not a house, a compound. 3 stories of limestone and glass, with wings extending in both directions. Columns framed the entrance. Windows caught the sunlight like mirrors. The landscaping was immaculate. Hedges trimmed to geometric perfection, flower beds bursting with color, a lawn that looked like it had been mowed with surgical precision. Holy shit. Language. Emma parked the car and killed the engine. Remember, my grandmother speaks fluent English and judges everyone great. Anything else I should know? Don't compliment my aunt's cooking unless you want to eat 3 servings. Don't mention politics. Don't mention Richard. She opened her door. And whatever you do, don't let my grandfather challenge you to a drinking game. Your grandfather challenges people to drinking games. He's 83 and competitive. Last Thanksgiving, he outdrank my cousin Michael and made him cry. I stared at her. Is this real life? This is Chin family life. She smiled. Welcome. The front door opened before we reached it. A woman stood in the doorway, 60-ish, elegant, with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a perfect chignon. She wore a silk dress the color of burgundy and a string of pearls that probably cost more than my education. Emma. Her voice was warm, but carried an unmistakable authority. You're early. Traffic was light. Emma hugged her. Mom, this is Lucas. Her mother's eyes swept over me with the thoroughness of a security scanner. I felt assessed, cataloged, and filed away in a mental database. Lucas. We've heard so much about you. All good, I hope, mostly. She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. Come in. Everyone's in the great room. She turned and walked inside, leaving us to follow. Emma leaned close to me. That went well. She hates me. She doesn't hate you. She's reserving judgment. Emma squeezed my hand. Give her time. The great room was exactly what it sounded like. Great. 2 stories tall, with a fireplace large enough to roast a whole pig, and windows that overlooked the manicured gardens. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. Oil paintings of stern-looking ancestors lined the walls, and filling the space were approximately 47 people. Just as Emma had predicted, they turned as we entered. Conversations faltered. Eyes landed on me with varying degrees of curiosity, suspicion, and amusement. Emma's hand found mine. She squeezed once, then released. Everyone, this is Lucas. My husband. A ripple of murmurs spread through the room. A few people nodded politely. Others stared openly. A man in his 50s, Emma's uncle, I guessed, approached with a glass of whiskey in his hand. Oh, you're the famous Lucas. His accent was refined, East Coast establishment. I've heard conflicting reports. Hopefully the good outweighs the bad. Hopefully. He studied me. I'm Henry Chun, Emma's uncle. I handle the family's real estate portfolio. Nice to meet you, Mr. Chun. Henry. He extended his hand. I shook it. His grip was firm, measuring. Emma tells us you're running Novatech now. Interim CEO. Yes. Big jump from project manager. I've had good mentorship. From Emma, I assume. He smiled thinly. She's always been good at spotting talent. There was a subtext to his words that I didn't fully understand. Before I could respond, a woman's voice cut through the crowd. Henry, stop interrogating the boy. He hasn't even had a drink. An elderly woman emerged from the crowd. She was small, barely 5 feet tall, with white hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She wore a simple black dress and a single strand of jade beads. Grandmother Chun, Lucas. She took my hand in both of hers. Her skin was papery, but her grip was strong. I've been wanting to meet you. The pleasure is mine, Mrs. Chun. Call me Nai Nai. Everyone does. She studied my face with an intensity that made me want to squirm. You have good bones. Strong jaw. Honest eyes. Thank you. Nai Nai, don't thank me yet. I haven't decided if I like you. She released my hand. Come. Sit. Eat. We'll talk later. She walked away, leaving me standing alone in a sea of chins. Emma reappeared at my side. That went better than expected. She said she hasn't decided if she likes me. Nai says that to everyone. She said it to my father the first time she met him. They've been married 53 years. Comforting. Come on. She tugged my arm. Let's get you a drink before my cousin Michael tries to challenge you to arm wrestling. Your family arm wrestles? You have no idea. The next 2 hours were a blur of introductions, small talk, and carefully measured questions that I met Emma's Aunt Ling, who asked about my family background and looked disappointed when I said I was an only child. I met her cousin Jennifer, a corporate lawyer who grilled me about Novateca's intellectual property strategy. I met her uncle Frank, who spent 10 minutes explaining his golf handicap in excruciating detail. Through it all, Emma stayed by my side, deflecting the more pointed questions with practiced ease. That she's good at this, I murmured during a brief lull. Years of practice. She sipped her wine. Family gatherings are basically diplomatic negotiations with better food. The food, at least, was incredible. A multi-course feast that started with soup and ended with desserts I couldn't name, but devoured anyway. Peking duck, braised abalone, steamed fish with ginger and scallions. Dishes I'd only ever seen in restaurant windows I couldn't afford to enter. I ate until I couldn't move. After dinner, the family dispersed into smaller groups. Children ran through the halls. Adults settled into corners for conversation and digestives. Emma was pulled away by her mother for a private conversation. I found myself alone on a terrace overlooking the garden, nursing a glass of brandy I didn't really want. You survived, I turned. Richard Chun stood in the doorway, a glass of scotch in his hand. Barely. First family dinner is always the hardest. He walked over and leaned against the railing beside me. They'll soften up eventually. Or they won't. Depends on how you handle the next few hours. Any advice? Don't let my grandfather bait you into a political argument. He's impossible to win against. Noted that we stood in silence for a moment. The garden stretched out before us, peaceful and serene. That I didn't expect you to show up tonight, Richard said finally. Why wouldn't I? After what happened at the board meeting. I assumed you'd want to avoid me. That I don't avoid people who try to destroy me. I confront them. Richard laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. You really believe that, don't you? I believe in facing problems head-on. That's admirable. He turned to face me. But it's also naive. You think you won that round because you were brave. You won because my father has a soft spot for underdogs. Next time, I won't give you the chance to appeal to his sentimentality. Is that a threat? It's a promise. He set down his glass. Enjoy the dinner, Lucas. It might be your last one as a member of this family. He walked back inside. I stood alone on the terrace, the brandy warming my hand, the night air cool against my face. Emma found me a few minutes later. What did Richard want? To remind me that he's still my enemy. He's always going to be your enemy. She leaned against the railing beside me. That's just who he is. Then why does your family tolerate him? Because he's family. She looked at me. Blood matters in this family. Even when it's toxic, that's messed up, that it's complicated. She sighed. Richard wasn't always like this. When we were kids, he was protective, kind. He taught me how to ride a bike, how to swim, how to stand up to bullies at school. What changed? Our father. She paused. When Richard turned 18, my father started grooming him to take over the family business. He put pressure on him, demanded perfection. Richard internalized it. He started seeing everyone as competition. Even me. That's why he hates me. He doesn't hate you. He hates what you represent. She turned to face me. You're proof that he's not irreplaceable. That someone from outside the family can earn our father's trust. That his position isn't guaranteed. That I never asked for any of this. That I know. She smiled. That's why you're the right person for it. She kissed me. Soft. Warm. The brandy on my breath mixing with the wine on hers. When she pulled back, her eyes were bright. Come on. Let's go inside before my grandmother sends a search party. The night wound down slowly. Guests began to depart. Cars pulled up to the circular driveway, carrying away aunts and uncles and cousins. The house grew quieter, emptier. Emma's parents retired to their wing of the house. Her grandmother kissed me on the cheek and said, "You'll do," before disappearing upstairs. That I wasn't sure if that was a compliment or a warning. Emma and I were shown to a guest room on the second floor. It was larger than my entire apartment. King-sized bed, sitting area, ensuite bathroom with a clawfoot tub. I collapsed onto the bed. I'm never moving again. Emma laughed. It's not that bad. Your uncle asked me about my 5-year plan. Your aunt asked me about my retirement savings. Your grandmother told me I have acceptable bone structure. I stared at the ceiling. I've been through job interviews less intense than this dinner. Welcome to the Chin family. She lay down beside me. You passed. By the way, I did. Nai told me you have good instincts. That's high praise from her. High praise for acceptable bone structured, but she's complicated that I'm starting to see a pattern. Emma propped herself up on one elbow. Are you okay? Really? I thought about it that I don't know, I admitted. This is all happening so fast. A month ago, I was a project manager eating microwave dinners. Now I'm married to a billionaire heiress, running a company, and being judged by your entire family. That's a lot that it's insane. She was quiet for a moment. Then, do you regret it? I looked at her. The moonlight filtered through the curtains, casting shadows across her face. She looked vulnerable, uncertain. Human.no, I said. I don't regret it. Even though it's insane, especially because it's insane. I reached up and touched her face. My life before you was predictable, safe, boring. I didn't realize how much I hated it until you showed up and blew it all up. That I blew it up? You showed up in my bed, dragged me to City Hall, and turned my life upside down. I smiled. Best thing that ever happened to me. She kissed me. Longer this time. Deeper. When she pulled back, her voice was soft. I don't deserve you. Probably not. I grinned. But you're stuck with me now, she laughed. I guess I am. We lay there in the darkness, the house settling around us, the distant sound of the ocean filtering through the windows. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I belonged. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through the curtains and the smell of coffee. Emma was already dressed, sitting in a chair by the window, her laptop open. Morning. She didn't look up. Sleep well, like the dead. I sat up. What time is it? 9. Breakfast is in an hour. My father wants to see you before we leave. My stomach tightened. About what? He didn't say. She closed her laptop. But he seemed pleased. That's usually a good sign. I showered and dressed in the clothes Emma had laid out. A casual button-down and slacks that somehow fit perfectly. She thought of everything. We went downstairs together. The house was quiet, the chaos of the previous night replaced by a peaceful stillness. David Chun was in his study, reading the newspaper. He looked up as we entered. Lucas. Emma. Come in. We sat across from him. He folded his newspaper and set it aside. That I wanted to speak with you privately before you left. He looked at me. I've been observing you, Lucas. Watching how you handle yourself. How you interact with the family. How you treat my daughter. I waited. I'm impressed. The words hung in the air. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. He leaned forward. I'm impressed, but I'm not convinced. You've handled the small tests well. The real test is still coming. What test? The test of time. He smiled. Anyone can perform for a month. The question is whether you can sustain it. Whether you can grow into the role you've been given. I intend to. Good. He stood. Then we have nothing more to discuss. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. He extended his hand. I shook it as we turned to leave. He added, oh, and Lucas. Richard is planning something. I don't know what, but I know him well enough to recognize the signs. Be careful. I will. We left the study. Emma was quiet as we walked to the car. Your father said Richard is planning something. He's always planning something. She opened the driver's door. The question is what? We drove back to the city in silence. The storm was coming. I could feel it. I just didn't know when it would hit. The storm hit on a Tuesday. I was in my office at Novatech, reviewing the latest beta test results for the AI diagnostic platform. The numbers were promising. 87% accuracy in initial trials, well above the industry standard. We were on track for a public launch in 4 months. My phone buzzed. Emma. Something's happening. Her voice was tight, controlled. Richard just called an emergency board meeting at Chun Capital Partners. He's claiming he has evidence of financial misconduct at Novatech. What? That's ridiculous. Our books are clean. I know. But he's convinced the board otherwise. They're voting on whether to freeze our funding pending an investigation. My blood ran cold. When's the vote? Tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. She paused. Lucas, if they freeze the funding, Novatech collapses. We don't have enough runway to survive a prolonged investigation. Then we stop him. How? I thought fast. I need everything you have on Richard. Every financial irregularity. Every questionable deal. Every skeleton in his closet. You're going to war. He started it. I grabbed my jacket. I'll be at Chun Capital Partners in an hour. We need to prepare. The Chun Capital Partners office was a fortress of glass and steel, 40 stories of corporate power in the heart of Midtown. I'd been here twice before, both times with Emma. This time, I was alone. The receptionist recognized me. Mr. Miller, Mrs. Chunwei is expecting you. 32nd floor. The elevator ride felt endless. I rehearsed what I was going to say, what I was going to demand. Richard had made a mistake. He'd tipped his hand too early. Now I had time to prepare. Emma met me at the elevator. She looked tired, but her eyes were sharp. Come. I've set up a war room in the East Conference Room. The war room was a glass-walled space with a massive monitor covering one wall. Data streams scrolled across the screen. Financial records, transaction histories, communication logs. What am I looking at? Everything I could dig up on Richard in the last 2 hours. She pointed to a section of the screen. These are his personal trading accounts. Notice anything unusual? I studied the data. Patterns emerged. Large deposits followed by suspiciously timed trades. Insider trading? Looks like it. But proving it is another matter. She zoomed in on a specific transaction. This one is from 6 months ago. He sold off a significant chunk of Chun Group stock just before a negative earnings report. Saved himself approximately $3 million. That's illegal. Only if you can prove he had advanced knowledge of the report. She turned to me. Richard is careful. He covers his tracks. This is circumstantial at best. Then what do we have? Leverage. She smiled. He doesn't know we have this. If we threaten to expose it, he might back down. Or he might double down. Exactly. She sat down. Which is why we need a backup plan. I paced the room, thinking. What about the board? Can we sway them? Possibly. But Richard has been cultivating relationships with them for years. They trust him. Then we need to give them a reason not to trust him. Emma's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her face went pale. What? Richard just sent a memo to the board. She turned the screen toward me. He's expanded his allegations. He's now claiming that I used Chun Capital Partners funds to personally enrich you. That our marriage was a scheme to defraud the company. That's insane. That it's also believable. Her voice was quiet. We got married. I invested in your company. On paper, it looks exactly like what he's describing. But it's not true. I know that. You know that. But the board doesn't know either of us well enough to be sure. She stood up. We need to find something bigger. Something that makes Richard's accusations look like a distraction. I stared at the data on the screen. Numbers. Transactions. Patterns. Then I saw it. Wait. I pointed at a cluster of transactions. What are these? Emma leaned in. Those are payments to a consulting firm. Chun Global Advisors. Who owns it? She checked. It's registered in Delaware. Shell company. Difficult to trace. But Richard controls it? Probably. He uses it for special projects. I felt a spark of recognition. Special projects like what? Emma scrolled through more data. Her face changed. Oh, what? These payments correspond with the timing of several major acquisitions. Acquisitions that Richard championed. Acquisitions that ended up benefiting this consulting firm. He's been funneling money to himself through fake consulting deals. It looks that way. She looked up at me. This is bigger than insider trading. This is embezzlement. How much? She calculated quickly. Over the last 3 years, approximately $12 million. We stared at each other. Does your father know? Not yet. She paused. If I show him this, Richard goes to prison. He's my brother. Lucas, he tried to destroy us. I know. Her voice cracked. But he's still my brother. I knelt beside her. Emma, I understand. Family is complicated. But he's not going to stop. He's going to keep coming at us until one of us is destroyed. Are you willing to let that be us? She was silent for a long moment. Then she picked up her phone. Dad? We need to talk. It's about Richard. The meeting was set for 7 p.m. that evening. David Chin's private residence. No lawyers. No assistants. Just the 3 of us, David, Emma, and me. We arrived at his penthouse apartment on Park Avenue. The view was spectacular. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, the city lights twinkling in the distance. David was waiting in his study. He looked older than I remembered. Tired. Sit. He gestured to the chairs. Emma told me you found something. Emma placed a folder on his desk. Richard has been embezzling from the company. $12 million over 3 years. Funneled through a shell company he controls. David didn't open the folder. He stared at it like it might explode. Are you sure? We have bank records. Transaction logs. Communication trails. She paused. It's solid. David leaned back in his chair. He looked out the window for a long moment. I knew. He said finally. Emma's jaw dropped. What? I suspected. For about a year now. He turned to face us. Richard has been acting strangely. Defensive. Secretive. I hired a private investigator, but I couldn't find proof. Then why didn't you tell me? Because I hoped I was wrong. His voice was heavy. I hoped my son wasn't capable of betraying the family. Silence. What do we do now? I asked. David looked at me. What do you suggest? Confront him. Give him a choice. Resign from the company and repay the money, or face prosecution. And if he chooses prosecution, then he faces the consequences of his actions. David nodded slowly. That's what I would have said 20 years ago. He stood up. But Richard is my son, and I've spent my life protecting this family. Protecting him won't help him, Emma said softly. He needs to face what he's done. I know. David walked to the window. I know. He turned back to us. Tomorrow morning, before the board meeting, I'll speak with Richard. Privately. I'll give him the choice Lucas suggested. And if he refuses, then we proceed with the evidence. His voice hardened. I built this company from nothing. I won't let my son destroy it. The next morning, I arrived at Chun Capital Partners at 8:30 a.m. The building was quiet. Too quiet. The usual bustle of traders and analysts was muted, replaced by a tense anticipation. Emma met me in the lobby. My father is with Richard now. They've been in his office for 30 minutes. How's it going? I don't know. I've been pacing for an hour. She grabbed my arm. Come on. Let's wait in the conference room. We sat in silence, watching the clock tick toward 9 a.m. At 8:55, David Chin walked into the conference room. His face was unreadable. Richard has agreed to resign. Emma let out a breath. He did, effective immediately. He'll repay the money over 5 years. No prosecution. David sat down heavily. He's also agreed to leave the country. He's moving to London to run our European operations. If that's exile, I said that's mercy. David looked at me. He's my son. I couldn't send him to prison. What about the board meeting? Cancelled. I've informed the board that Richard has resigned for personal reasons. He paused. The funding for Novatech remains in place. Emma, you retain full authority over Chun Capital Partners investments. Emma nodded slowly. Thank you. Dad, don't thank me. He stood up. I've spent my life building this company. I've spent even more trying to hold this family together. Today, I failed at both. He walked out of the room. Emma and I sat in silence. Are you okay? I asked. I don't know. She looked at me. My brother tried to destroy us. My father covered it up. And I'm supposed to just move on? You're supposed to do whatever you need to do. I took her hand. But you're not alone. I'm here. She squeezed my hand. I know. The next few weeks were a strange kind of normal. Richard's departure left a vacuum at Chin Capital Partners. Emma stepped up to fill it, taking on additional responsibilities. I focused on Novatech, pushing the AI platform toward launch. We fell into a rhythm. Work. Home. Repeat. The chaos of the past month faded into memory, replaced by the steady hum of daily life. But I knew it wouldn't last. Richard was gone, but his shadow lingered. There were whispers at the office, questions about his sudden departure, rumors that refused to die, and somewhere in London, Richard Chun was plotting his return. I could feel it. The question was when. The months after Richard's exile were the closest thing to peace I'd experienced since waking up next to Emma Chun. Spring turned to summer. The days grew longer, hotter, more humid. New York City settled into its annual rhythm of sweat and impatience. And somewhere in the chaos, Novatech Solutions became a real company. The AI diagnostic platform was a genuine success. 3 major hospital systems signed contracts. 2 more were in negotiation. Our revenue projections for the next fiscal year looked strong enough to make even the most skeptical board member nod in approval that I was no longer Emma Chin's husband who got lucky. I was Lucas Miller, CEO of Novatech Solutions. The distinction mattered more than I wanted to admit. Emma and I settled into a rhythm that felt almost domestic. Morning coffee together. Separate workdays. Evening dinners where we talked about everything and nothing. Weekends spent exploring neighborhoods we'd never visited, trying restaurants we'd never heard of, building a life that felt increasingly real. But something was off. I noticed it in the small moments. The way Emma's gaze would drift during conversations. The way she'd sometimes look at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Affection mixed with something else. Guilt, maybe. Or fear. I told myself I was imagining things. That the trauma of the past months had made me paranoid. That we were fine. I was wrong. It happened on a Thursday night in July. I came home late from a meeting with potential investors. The apartment was dark except for a single lamp in the living room. Emma was sitting on the couch, a glass of wine untouched on the table in front of her, her hands folded in her lap. She looked up as I entered. Her eyes were red. "Emma? What's wrong? I need to tell you something." Her voice was hoarse, like she'd been crying for hours. "Something I should have told you a long time ago." I sat down across from her. My heart was pounding. "You're scaring me." I'm scared too. She took a shaky breath. "Lucas, everything I've told you about why I married you. It's not the whole truth." I felt the floor shift beneath me. "What do you mean?" "I told you I needed a husband to satisfy my family's requirements. That you were convenient. That I chose you because you were safe." She paused. "That was true, but it wasn't the only reason." "Then what was the other reason?" She looked down at her hands. "I was running from something. Someone." "Who?" "His name is Marcus Chun. No blood relation. His family married into ours 3 generations ago." She finally met my eyes. "We were betrothed when I was 12 years old." The word hit me like a physical blow. Betrothed? It was an arrangement. A merger between 2 branches of the Chin family. My grandparents and his grandparents signed an agreement before I was born. She wiped at her eyes. "I've been running from it my entire adult life." "You were engaged to someone else when you married me?" "Not engaged. Bound." "It was more than an engagement. It was a contract. Legally binding. If I broke it, my family would lose significant assets." Her voice cracked. "Marrying you was the only way out, because I was so far outside your world that the contract couldn't apply." "Yes." She nodded slowly. "You were my escape route. My get out of jail free card. My—" She trailed off. "Your pawn." I didn't want it to be like that." Tears streamed down her face. "I didn't plan to fall for you. I didn't plan for any of this to become real. But it did. And now I don't know how to separate the strategy from the truth." I sat back, the weight of her words pressing down on my chest. "How long were you going to wait before telling me this?" "I don't know." She shook her head. "I kept hoping I'd never have to. That Marcus would move on. That the contract would expire. That I could just forget it ever existed." "Did he move on?" "No." Her voice was barely a whisper. "He's been trying to contact me for months. He found out about our marriage. He's threatening to enforce the contract that he can't enforce a betrothal contract. This isn't the 18th century that he can try." She looked at me. "My family's lawyers say he has a case. The contract includes penalty clauses, liquidated damages. If he wins, I could lose everything. My position at Chun Capital Partners, my inheritance, my stake in the family business. And me?" She hesitated. The hesitation told me everything I needed to know. The contract has a clause about marriage to a third party. If I married someone else without the family's consent, the marriage could be challenged. Challenged how? Annulment. On grounds of fraud. She couldn't look at me. "Marcus's lawyers are arguing that our marriage was never valid because I entered into it with the intent to defraud the family contract." That I stood up, walked to the window, stared at the city lights without seeing them. Is that true? Is what true? Did you marry me with the intent to defraud anyone?" Silence. "Emma, look at me and answer the question." She looked up. Her eyes were red, swollen, devastated. "Yes," she said. "That's exactly what I did." The word hung in the air like a guillotine blade. That I waited for the anger to come, for the rage, for the betrayal to consume me. Instead, I felt something worse. "Understanding. I see," I said quietly. "Lucas, I understand why you did it." I turned to face her. "I understand the pressure you were under. The expectations. The impossible choices." I paused. "But understanding doesn't make it hurt less." I know." She stood up. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I lied to you, manipulated you, used you." She walked toward me. "But I need you to know one thing." "What?" "Everything after the wedding was real." She stopped in front of me. "The way I felt when you held my hand at the family dinner. The way I felt when you stood up to Richard. The way I felt when you came to find me at that coffee shop." Her voice broke. "That was all real. You are real to me." I looked at her. The woman who had turned my life upside down. The woman who had saved my company. The woman who had lied to me from the very beginning. "Where is Marcus now?" "He's in New York. He wants to meet." "Meet about what?" "About the contract. About our marriage." She swallowed. "He says he wants to negotiate." "Negotiate what?" "Terms for letting me go." She paused. "Or terms for taking everything." I took a deep breath. "Then we meet him." "Lucas, you don't have to." "Yes, I do." I took her hands. "I married you. For better or worse. This is the worst part. We face it together." She stared at me. "After everything I just told you, you're still here?" "I'm still here." I squeezed her hands. "I'm angry. I'm hurt. I feel betrayed. But I'm not leaving. Why? Because I love you. The words came out before I could stop them. I love the woman who crashed into my life and destroyed my boring, predictable existence. I love the woman who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. I love the woman who's standing in front of me, terrified and honest, finally telling me the truth. She broke down. Sobs racked her body. I pulled her into my arms and held her as she cried that I'm sorry. She whispered into my chest. I'm so sorry that I know. I stroked her hair. I know. The meeting with Marcus Chun was set for the following Tuesday. Emma spent the weekend in a state of anxious preparation. She reviewed legal documents, consulted with lawyers, made phone calls to family members she hadn't spoken to in years that I spent the weekend trying to process everything she'd told me. Part of me wanted to be furious, to storm out, to demand an annulment and walk away from the chaos she'd dragged me into. But another part of me, the part that had fallen in love with her, couldn't let go that she'd lied. She'd manipulated. She'd used me. But she'd also saved me. She'd believed in me. She'd given me a life I never could have built on my own. And when it came down to it, she'd told me the truth. Eventually. Painfully. Honestly. That counted for something. Tuesday arrived faster than either of us wanted. The meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m. at a law firm in Midtown. White shoe. Old money. The kind of place where partners had been partners since before their fathers died. Emma and I arrived together. She was wearing a navy blue power suit and an expression of steel determination. I was wearing the best suit I owned, the one she'd bought me for the family dinner. We were escorted to a conference room on the 27th floor. The room was all wood paneling and leather chairs, with a view of the Hudson River stretching to the horizon. Marcus Chun was already there. He was younger than I expected, mid-30s, with the kind of effortless handsomeness that came from good genetics and expensive grooming. His suit was bespoke. His watch was a Patek Philippe. His smile was polished and predatory. Emma. He stood as we entered. It's been too long, Marcus. Her voice was ice. This is my husband, Lucas Miller. Marcus turned to me. His eyes traveled over me with the casual dismissiveness of someone who'd spent his entire life being the richest person in every room. Lucas, I've heard so much about you. All good, I hope. Mixed, actually. He smiled. But I'm willing to keep an open mind. That we sat down across from him. A lawyer I didn't recognize sat beside Marcus, a thick folder of documents in front of him. Let's get straight to the point, Marcus said. The contract between our families is clear. Emma was betrothed to me. She broke that contract by marrying you without family consent. The contract is archaic, Emma said. It's not enforceable in modern courts. Perhaps. Marcus shrugged. But enforcing it isn't about winning in court. It's about making your life miserable enough that you're willing to negotiate. What do you want? Simple. He leaned forward. I want you to acknowledge the contract. Publicly. I want your family to pay the penalty clauses outlined in the agreement. And I want you to step down from your position at Chun Capital Partners. That's not simple, I said. That's extortion. Marcus's eyes flicked to me. This doesn't concern you. I'm her husband. Everything concerning her concerns me. Charming. He turned back to Emma. Those are my terms. Accept them, and I walk away. Refuse, and I'll spend the next decade making your life a legal nightmare. Emma was silent for a long moment. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a folder of her own. Before you make any threats, Marcus, you should know something. She slid the folder across the table. I've spent the last 6 months investigating you. Your business dealings. Your personal life. Your extracurricular activities. Marcus's smile faltered. What is this? Evidence. Emma's voice was calm. Evidence that you've been running a parallel business using Chun family connections without authorization. Evidence that you've been hiding assets from your own family. Evidence that you've been paying bribes to foreign officials to secure contracts. Marcus opened the folder. His face went pale as he scanned the contents. This is fabricated. It's documented. Verified. Ready to be submitted to the appropriate authorities. Emma leaned back. You can try to enforce your archaic contract, Marcus. But if you do, I'll make sure this evidence finds its way to the SEC, the FBI, and every major news outlet in the country. You wouldn't. Try me. The silence stretched. Marcus closed the folder. His composure had shattered, replaced by something colder. More dangerous. Fine, he said. You win this round. But this isn't over. It is for now. Emma stood up. Stay away from my family. Stay away from my husband. And stay away from me. She walked out of the room. I followed. I in the elevator. She finally exhaled. Holy shit. Holy shit is right. I looked at her. You had that evidence the whole time? I've been collecting it for years. Just in case. She leaned against the elevator wall. I was hoping I'd never have to use it. But you did, because I had to protect us. She looked at me. I told you. Everything after the wedding was real. And I'll do whatever it takes to protect what we've built. The elevator doors opened. We stepped out into the lobby. Outside, the sun was shining. The city was humming. And for the first time in days, Emma looked like she could breathe. Come on, I said, taking her hand. Let's go home. Home sounds perfect. That night, we sat on our balcony, watching the city lights flicker in the darkness. Emma was curled up beside me, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. The wine bottle between us was half-empty. Do you think he'll come back? I asked Marcus. Eventually. He's not the type to give up permanently. She rested her head on my shoulder. But I think we bought ourselves some time. And when he does come back, then we'll be ready. She looked up at me. Together, I kissed the top of her head. I love you, Emma. Even when you keep secrets. Even when you lie. Even when you terrify me. I love you too. She smiled. Even when you're annoyingly forgiving. Annoyingly forgiving is my specialty. We sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars struggle to compete with the city's glow. Lucas? Yeah. Thank you. For staying. Thank you for finally telling me the truth. She nestled closer. No more secrets. I promised I'm going to hold you to that. Good. She closed her eyes. I'm counting on it that we stayed on the balcony until the wine was gone and the city began to quiet. Then we went inside, hand in hand, ready to face whatever came next. Together. 3 weeks passed since the confrontation with Marcus Chun. The city moved into August, hot and lazy and slow. Novatech's growth continued steadily. Emma resumed her role at Chun Capital Partners with renewed focus. We settled into a rhythm that felt almost normal, waking up together, working separately, reconvening at night for dinners that ranged from takeout to Michelin-starred deliveries. That I started to believe the chaos was behind us. I was wrong. That IT happened on a Wednesday morning. That I was in my office at Novatech, reviewing the quarterly projections, when my phone buzzed with an incoming call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Something made me swipe right. Lucas Miller. Lucas. The voice was familiar, but I couldn't place it. This is Margaret Cho, David Chin's executive assistant. My stomach tightened. Margaret, what can I do for you? Mr. Chin requests your presence at his residence this evening. 7 p.m. He asks that you come alone. May I ask what this is about? He didn't specify, but I believe it concerns Mrs. Chun Wei. The line went dead. I stared at my phone for a long moment. Then I dialed Emma, straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. I sent a text. Your father wants to see me tonight. Alone. Do you know what this is about? No response. I arrived at David Chin's penthouse at exactly 7 p.m. The building was the same as before. Impeccable doorman, marble lobby, elevator that required a keycard to access the top floor. Margaret met me at the elevator. Mr. Miller. Thank you for coming. Is Emma here? No? Mr. Chin requested this meeting be private. My anxiety ratcheted up another notch. What's going on? Mr. Chin will explain everything. She led me down a hallway to a study I hadn't seen before. Please. He's waiting. She opened the door and gestured for me to enter. David Chun was standing by the window, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked older than the last time I'd seen him, more tired, more burdened. The weight of recent events had etched new lines into his face. Lucas. Thank you for coming. Of course, sir. What's this about? He gestured to a chair. I sat. He remained standing. I've received some troubling news, he said. News that affects Emma. And by extension, you, Marcus Chin, partly. He took a sip of his whiskey. But also Richard. My blood went cold. Richard, he's been in contact with Marcus. They've formed an alliance. David's voice was heavy. They're planning to challenge Emma's control of Chun Capital Partners. They have evidence, manufactured, I believe, that she mismanaged funds during the Novatech investment. That's ridiculous. The investment was a success. Success doesn't matter when perception is controlled by your enemies. He turned to face me. They've already approached 3 board members. They have enough support to call a special vote. When? Next week. Thursday. I processed the information. What do they want? Control. Revenge. To undo everything Emma has built. He paused. And to remove you from the picture entirely. Remove me how? They're planning to file a lawsuit challenging the validity of your marriage. They'll claim fraud, coercion, and undue influence. If they win, the marriage is annulled, and Emma loses her position. Can they win? David was silent for a long moment. They have a strong case. The circumstances of your marriage are unconventional. A skilled lawyer could make it look exactly like what they're claiming. What do we do? I'm going to fight them. With everything I have. He set down his whiskey. But I need your help. Anything that I need you to find evidence. Real evidence. Proof that Richard and Marcus are colluding to destabilize the company. If we can expose their plan, the board will turn against them. Where do I start? Richard kept a safe deposit box at a bank in Zurich. I have reason to believe it contains documents detailing their scheme. He handed me a key. This is a copy. The original is in my safe. You want me to go to Switzerland? I want you to do whatever it takes to protect my daughter. His eyes met mine. Can I count on you? I took the key. Yes, sir. That I didn't tell Emma about the meeting. Not because I didn't trust her, but because I knew she'd try to stop me. She'd want to face Richard and Marcus head on, to fight her own battles. But this was different. This was personal. Richard had targeted me from the beginning. Now he was targeting my wife. I booked a flight to Zurich that night. The flight was 8 hours of restless anxiety. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't think about anything except what I might find in that safe deposit box. Zurich was gray and cold when I landed. The bank was in the old city, a building that looked more like a museum than a financial institution. Marble columns, brass fixtures, employees who moved with the quiet efficiency of people who handled other people's secrets for a living. I presented the key, completed the paperwork, was escorted to a private room. The safe deposit box was larger than I expected. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside were documents, dozens of them, contracts, agreements, correspondence. I started reading. The first document was a partnership agreement between Richard Chun and Marcus Chun, dated 6 months before I met Emma. They'd been planning this for longer than I knew. The second document was a detailed plan to destabilize Chun Capital Partners. Richard would create internal conflicts. Marcus would exploit them. Together, they'd force a leadership change that would put Richard in control. The third document was the most damning. It was a signed agreement between Richard and a shell company in the Cayman Islands. The shell company was controlled by Marcus. The agreement outlined a scheme to siphon funds from Chun Capital Partners into offshore accounts. $20 million over 3 years. Richard wasn't just trying to take control of the company. He was stealing from it. I photographed every document, every page, every signature. Then I flew home. The board meeting was scheduled for Thursday at 10 a.m. I arrived at Chun Capital Partners at 9:30. The evidence stored securely on my phone and backed up to 3 different cloud services. Emma was already there, looking pale but determined. You went to Zurich, she said. It wasn't a question. How did you know? My father told me. She grabbed my arm. You should have told me that I didn't want you to worry that I'm your wife. It's my job to worry. She pulled me into a hug. Did you find anything? Everything. I showed her the photos. Richard and Marcus have been planning this for years. Richard has been stealing from the company. Emma's face went through several emotions: shock, anger, grief, before settling into cold determination. Then we end this. Today, the boardroom was packed. 12 board members sat around the mahogany table. David Chun was at the head. Richard was seated near the middle, flanked by lawyers. Marcus Chun was conspicuously absent, but his presence was felt in the documents spread across the table. Emma and I sat at the opposite end, facing Richard. Let's begin, David said. Richard, you requested this meeting. State your case. Richard stood. He looked confident, smug, like a man who'd already won. Thank you, Father. He turned to the board. I'm here today to raise concerns about Emma Chunwei's leadership of Chun Capital Partners. Specifically, her decision to invest $50 million in Novatech Solutions, a company owned by her husband. The investment was sound, Emma said. Novatech has already returned 15% on the initial capital. The investment was a conflict of interest. Richard's voice was smooth. You married the CEO of a company you were investing in. You failed to disclose the relationship to the board. You violated basic fiduciary duty. I disclosed the relationship after the marriage. The investment was approved by the board, approved under false pretenses. Richard turned to the board. I have evidence that Emma manipulated the approval process, that she concealed material information, that she acted in her personal interest rather than the company's. He placed a folder on the table. This contains emails, financial records, and witness statements that prove my case. The board members murmured among themselves. Emma stood. Before you review Richard's evidence, I'd like to present some evidence of my own. She nodded to me that I pulled out my phone and connected it to the room's display system. Documents appeared on the screen, the photos I'd taken in Zurich. What is this? Richard's voice was sharp. This is a partnership agreement between you and Marcus Chen. Emma's voice was calm. Dated 6 months before I met Lucas. It outlines your plan to destabilize Chun Capital Partners and seize control. If that's a fabrication.is it? Emma scrolled to the next document. This is a signed agreement between you and a shell company in the Cayman Islands. It shows that you've been siphoning funds from the company for 3 years. $20 million. The room went silent, Richard's face drained of color. That's authenticated. Verified. Ready to be submitted to the SEC. Emma turned to the board. Richard has been stealing from this company while accusing me of misconduct. He's been planning this coup for years. Chaos erupted. Board members shouted questions. Lawyers scribbled notes. Richard's composure shattered completely. This is a lie. He shouted. She's manipulating you. The documents don't lie. Richard. David's voice cut through the noise. I've had them verified by an independent forensic accountant. The signatures are yours. The accounts are yours. The theft is yours. Richard stared at his father. You knew? I suspected. David's voice was heavy. I hoped I was wrong. The room fell silent. Richard Chun, David said, you are hereby removed from your position at Chun Capital Partners, effective immediately. Your shares are frozen pending a full investigation. Security will escort you out. 2 guards entered the room. Richard looked at Emma. His eyes were filled with hatred. This isn't over, he said. Yes, it is. Emma's voice was steady. Goodbye, Richard. The guards let him out. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Richard's arrest made headlines. The embezzlement scandal dominated business news for weeks. Marcus Chun, implicated in the scheme, fled the country to avoid prosecution. Emma was hailed as a hero for exposing the corruption. Her position at Chun Capital Partners was solidified. The board issued a formal apology for doubting her judgment. And me? I became something I never expected to be. Respected, the business press called me the unlikely hero of the Chun family drama. Industry analysts praised my leadership of Novatech. Strangers stopped me on the street to shake my hand. But none of that mattered compared to what happened next. A month after the board meeting, Emma and I stood on the balcony of our apartment, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. It's over, she said. Really over.is it? Richard is in jail. Marcus is in hiding. The board supports me completely. She turned to me. We won. We won. I pulled her close. So what now? Now we live. She smiled. We build our life. We grow our company. We figure out what comes next. That sounds terrifying. It is. She kissed me. But I can't think of anyone I'd rather be terrified with. I kissed her back. Emma? Yes. Will you marry me? She laughed. We're already married. I know. But I never asked you properly. Not really. I pulled a small box from my pocket. Inside was a simple platinum band. Nothing flashy, nothing expensive. Just a symbol of everything we'd been through. Emma Chunwei, will you marry me? For real this time? Tears streamed down her face. Yes, she said. Yes, I'll marry you. I slipped the ring onto her finger. She kissed me. And somewhere in the distance, the city hummed on, oblivious to the miracle happening on a balcony in the sky. We got married again 6 months later. Small ceremony. Close friends. Immediate family. No business associates. No media. Just us. David Chen walked Emma down the aisle. Her mother cried. Her grandmother nodded approvingly and said, finally. I said my vows without stumbling. Emma said hers without crying. Until the very end, when a single tear escaped down her cheek, that we danced until midnight. Ate until we couldn't move. Laughed until our faces hurt. And when it was over, we drove away together, ready to face whatever came next. Because whatever it was, we'd face it together. That was the promise. That was the truth. That was forever. The wedding was perfect. The honeymoon was paradise. The return to reality was a punch in the gut. We came back from 2 weeks in Santorini to find the world had changed. Emma's phone exploded with messages the moment we landed at JFK. Board members, lawyers, her father's executive assistant. all with the same urgent refrain. Something was wrong. The car ride from the airport was silent except for the clicking of Emma's thumbs against her phone screen. Her face went through a spectrum of emotions: confusion, concern, then something darker. Feared out what's going on. I asked Richard. She didn't look up. He's out. Out of where? Jail. He made bail. Posted $10 million in cash. She finally looked at me. And he's not alone. Marcus, and 3 other board members who've switched sides. She put down her phone. They're calling for a special shareholders meeting. They want to vote on my removal as managing partner. But that's insane. After everything we exposed, Richard is spinning it as a conspiracy. He's claiming I manufactured the evidence against him, that my father and I conspired to frame him. She rubbed her temples. And apparently, enough people believe him to make this a real threat. How is that possible? Because Richard has been building relationships in this company for 15 years. I've been here 5. He has allies I don't even know about. She looked out the window. I underestimated him, that we underestimated him. No. She turned back to me. I did. I should have known he wouldn't go quietly. I should have prepared for this. Stop. I took her hand. We faced this together. Just like everything else, she squeezed my hand. Together, the special shareholders meeting was scheduled for 2 weeks out. Emma spent every waking hour preparing. She met with lawyers, strategists, and loyal board members. She reviewed every document, every transaction, every decision she'd made in the past 5 years. She built a defense so thorough that even her critics had to admit it was impressive. But Richard had been preparing too. The week before the meeting, the first salvo landed. A news article appeared in the Wall Street Journal. The headline read, "Chun Capital Partners, a family affair or a family feud." The article painted Emma as a power-hungry manipulator who had married a nobody to secure control of the family empire. It quoted anonymous sources who claimed she had bullied Richard out of the company to eliminate competition. The spin was masterful. It took the truth and twisted it just enough to make Emma look like the villain. I read the article in my office, my blood boiling with each paragraph. When I finished, I called Emma. I saw it. Everyone saw it. Her voice was tired. Richard's PR team is good. I'll give him that. What do? We fight back. I've already scheduled interviews with Bloomberg and CNBC. I'm going to tell my side of the story. Will it matter? It has to. The interviews helped, but not enough that Emma's calm, measured responses contrasted sharply with Richard's aggressive media campaign. Independent analysts began questioning the narrative. A few articles emerged that were sympathetic to Emma's position, but the damage was done. Doubt had been planted. And in the world of high finance, doubt was poison. The day before the shareholders' meeting, Emma came home looking defeated. That it's not enough? She said. That what's not enough? My defense. My interviews. My evidence. She sank onto the couch. I talked to 3 board members today. 2 of them are leaning toward Richard. 1 is undecided. That's not enough to win. How many do you need? 7 out of 12. I have 5 solid votes. Maybe 6 if the undecided one comes through. She buried her face in her hands. I'm going to lose my company, Lucas. Not yet. You're not. She looked up. What do you mean? I sat down beside her. You said Richard has been building relationships for 15 years. Fine. But you've been building something too. What us? I took her hands. You've built a team, a network, people who believe in you, people who've seen you fight, people who know the truth. Like who? Like your father, like your grandmother, like every employee at Novatech who watched you save their jobs. I paused. Like me. She smiled weakly. That's sweet. But it's not enough to swing a board vote. Maybe not. But it's enough to remind you that you're not alone. I squeezed her hands. Whatever happens tomorrow, we'll handle it. Together. She leaned into me. What did I do to deserve you? You married me when I was hungover and confused. Best decision I ever made. The shareholders' meeting was held at Chun Capital Partners headquarters. The conference room was packed. 12 board members sat around the table. Lawyers lined the walls. Shareholders watched via video link from around the world. Emma sat at one end of the table. Richard sat at the other. Between them, the fate of a billion-dollar empire hung in the balance. David Chun called the meeting to order. His voice was steady, but I could see the strain in his eyes. He was about to preside over a battle between his 2 children. That we're here today to consider a motion to remove Emma Chun Wei as managing partner of Chun Capital Partners, he said. The motion has been brought by Richard Chun, supported by 3 board members. Each side will have 30 minutes to present their case. Richard went first. He stood, adjusted his tie, and addressed the room with the confidence of a man who believed he was destined to win. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here today not as Emma's brother, but as a shareholder who believes in the future of this company. He paused for effect. Over the past year, I've watched our managing partner make decisions that prioritize personal relationships over fiduciary duty. She invested $50 million in her husband's company. She concealed material information from the board. She created an environment of secrecy and favoritism that undermines everything this company stands for. He turned to Emma. I don't say this lightly. Emma is my sister. I love her. But love doesn't excuse negligence. And that's what we've seen, negligence masked as innovation. The board members nodded. A few made notes. Emma stood. Her expression was calm, but I could see the fire in her eyes. Thank you, Richard, for that passionate speech. Her voice was steady. Now let me present the facts. She walked to the front of the room and activated the display screen. Fact 1. The Novatech investment has returned 18% in its first year. That's triple the average return of our portfolio. She clicked to the next slide. Fact 2. Every decision I made regarding Novatech was documented, reviewed, and approved by the appropriate committees. The suggestion that I concealed information is demonstrably false. Another click. Fact 3. The person who has been concealing information from this board is not me. It's Richard. Gasps rippled through the room. Emma displayed a series of documents on the screen. These are emails between Richard and Marcus Chun, dating back 3 years. They detail a plan to systematically undermine this company's leadership and install Richard as managing partner. That Richard's face went pale. Those are forgeries. They've been authenticated by 3 independent firms. Emma's voice was ice. The same firms that verified the evidence of Richard's embezzlement. The same evidence that led to his arrest. The room erupted. Board members shouted over each other. Lawyers scrambled to review the documents. Richard's carefully constructed facade crumbled before everyone's eyes. This is a setup. Richard slammed his hand on the table. She's manipulating you, just like she manipulated father. Sit down, Richard. David's voice cut through the chaos. Richard turned to his father. You're choosing her? After everything I've done for this company, I'm choosing the truth. David stood. The evidence against you is overwhelming. The evidence against Emma is non-existent. This meeting is adjourned. No. Richard's voice cracked. You can't. I can. And I have. David turned to the security guards. Escort Mr. Chun out of the building. He is no longer welcome here. Richard was led away, shouting protests that no one listened to. The room fell silent. Emma stood at the front, her hands trembling slightly, her face a mask of composure. The motion to remove me as managing partner is denied, she said. This meeting is adjourned. That night, we sat on our balcony, watching the city lights flicker in the darkness. It's over, Emma said. Really over this time. Is it? Richard is finished. Marcus is gone. The board supports me unanimously. She turned to me. We won. We won. I pulled her close. So what now? Now we rebuild. She smiled. We fix what Richard broke. We strengthen what he tried to destroy. We make this company stronger than ever. That sounds like a lot of work. It is. She kissed me. But I can't think of anyone I'd rather do it with. I kissed her back. Emma? Yes. Thank you. For what? For choosing me. For trusting me. For letting me be part of this insane, wonderful, terrifying life. She laughed. You make it sound like a roller coaster. It is a roller coaster. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. She leaned into me. Neither would I. We stayed on the balcony until the stars came out, holding each other, ready for whatever came next. Because whatever it was, we'd face it together, forever.